This is an assumptions question. This last sentence here is the conclusion of the argument. The missing link is between all the information provided and the conclusion. It has been mentioned that this village has achieved narrow self-sufficiency in construction material, primarily wood and bricks. However, this village is getting industrialized, because of which the use of bricks is increasing and it takes a lot of wood to produce brick. Therefore, the conclusion has been reached that as this village continues to industrialize and the local wood production will not increase, the villagers will have to either source wood or bricks or both. We need to identify an assumption made in reaching this conclusion here. An assumption is something that strengthens the conclusion and something that must be true for the argument to hold ground. That the total wood land available will not decrease is just an operational fact. It has been mentioned that the local wood production will not increase and the village will continue to industrialize. So the availability of wood land available for wood cutting is just additional detail that has no bearing on the conclusion of the argument. Besides, it is something that does not have to be true for the argument to hold ground, so this cannot be called a valid assumption. The woodland available for wood cutting may decrease, and this will only strengthen the conclusion that the villagers will have to import stuff. So that the total woodland available for wood cutting does not decrease is not a necessary condition for this conclusion to hold ground. So this answer choice fails the assumption negation test. This cannot be a valid assumption. That the village's population has remained relatively stable does not address the issue of increasing demand for bricks and therefore the need for importing wood, brick or both. And once again, answer choice B does not include any information that must be true for the argument to hold ground. If the population has not remained stable, this may be another reason. This may in fact contribute to the need for importing stuff. So answer choice B does not strengthen the conclusion. It is not something that must be true for the argument to hold ground. So this cannot be a valid assumption. That government regulations do not determine the price of wood or bricks in the village is just an operational detail. This has no bearing on the conclusion of the argument. So this is something that does not strengthen the argument, and once again this is not something that must be true for the conclusion to hold ground. Even if the government regulations determine the price of wood or bricks, the conclusion here that imports may be needed remains unaffected. So answer choice D as well fails the assumption negation test, and thus this cannot be a valid assumption. Remember, I'm applying the assumption negation test in all the answer choices mainly to drive home conceptual clarity. You don't have to apply it every time. This is a backup strategy. You must apply it only when you are confused. Assumption negation test takes extra time. That the per capita usage of bricks is approximately equal across all income levels is just additional nuance. This has no bearing on the conclusion of the argument. This does not strengthen the conclusion, and once again, this is not something that must be true for the conclusion here to hold ground. So answer choice E can be very comfortably eliminated. Let's confirm answer choice C now. Yes, in order to reach this conclusion, it must be established that an increase in the usage of bricks will not sharply decrease the usage of wood. This answer choice strengthens the conclusion, and this is something that must be true for the argument to hold ground. Otherwise, if the increase in the usage of bricks does lead to a sharp decline in the usage of wood, the rise mentioned here in the usage of bricks shall be compensated by this sharp decrease in the usage of wood, and the need for import expressed in the conclusion of the argument would not be there. So answer choice C, when turned negative, weakens the conclusion. So answer choice C passes the assumption negation test. C is something that strengthens the conclusion, and it is something that must be true for the argument to hold ground. C is the correct answer choice.